The doors of the infirmary hiss as they open and admit me to the room, and Riona's head snaps up from where she's seated in front of her terminal. She gives me a soft smile, standing to greet me.
I was beginning to think Calderon ignored my message.
Does he do that a lot? She chuckles, her blue lips widening to reveal most of her teeth.
More than you'd think.
I pace further into the room, glancing over the various plants and specimens that cover the cabinets and desk. He said you wanted to do a checkup.
I do. Well, I really just wanted to make sure you were all right.
She gestures for me to take a seat on the familiar medical bed, and once again the plastic crinkles under me as I sit. It smells different in here again this time, like jasmine buds and nightfall. I'm sure Riona's missed hers to thank for the pleasant scent, and I inhale deeply, letting it calm me.
So, now that your memories have started returning, how much do you remember?
Bits and pieces. They seem to be coming back easier now, but some are still fuzzy. Riona takes her medical wand and lights the tip, checking my eyes first, and then my ears before she takes my temperature.
Any pain?
I have a headache, but that's it. She sets down her wand and goes over to a large cabinet. After shuffling around in it a little, she comes back with a small container.
Take a couple of these, they'll give you some relief. You can take them every 4 to 6 hours if the pain persists.
She fills a glass with water and hands it to me, and I swallow down a couple of the pills. Almost immediately the ache in my head begins to dull, and I hand the glass back to her with a grateful smile.
I'd like to do some scans over the next couple of days. They will take a little while, but it'll give me a clearer view of what's going on in that head of yours.
I nod, and she gives me a gentle smile, placing a comforting hand on my arm.
I can't imagine what you must be going through right now.
And then her face falls, and the glimmer of her skin fades, betraying her true emotions.
I'm sorry for your family, Nico. I truly am.
My throat tightens as tears threaten to spill once again, but I manage a grateful smile through it all. Thank you.
I know what it's like to live with a difficult family, and I've seen my share of tragedy.
After talking it over with Calderon, I don't feel I can take any more talk about my family, so I steer the conversation in a new direction instead. When you left your home, was it a difficult decision to make? Riona gives me a sidelong glance, as though she sees what I'm doing. Thankfully, she runs with it.
The toughest. But I knew I had to do something. Something more. That's when I joined the Archangels and traveled the system with them, helping those in need.
What happened to them? With a sigh, she brings her chair over to face where I sit and drops down into it with no small amount of grace.
I'll tell you if you want to hear it, but it's not a pretty story.
I'd like to hear the story, as long as you're willing to tell it. She doesn't speak for a moment, gathering her thoughts before her story begins. Before she speaks, her skin flickers, torn between conflicting memories.
When I left Talaran, it was with a friend. His sister was an archangel and he was going off to join her, so I tagged along. The work we did was, well, it was amazing at first.
Her face drops, and I know the worst is yet to come.
We were here, on Terrania, and a group of Talari certainly draws attention, but we didn't think. We were too focused on trying to get our name out there, on trying to help people. I'm sure you know of the K-Mary, Zovak's followers. They are a brutal, bloody clan. They do what they want, when they want to.
I nod, having heard stories of their exploits, and I feel a sense of dread crawl down my spine.
One day, we were walking the streets when 24, maybe more, surrounded us. 24 against the 10 of us. They rounded us up. They pushed us down a dark alley, away from prying eyes. No one dared to stop them. We had helped countless people, and yet no one helped us. They herded us like cattle. They insulted, beat, and belittled us. A couple of the archangels tried to escape, and while the K. Mary were distracted, my friend, Mila, pushed me into the shell of a ruined building. She saved my life. I was able to hide quickly enough, concealed by the remnants of the building I was in. They couldn't see me, but I saw everything. They didn't bother to count the bodies. They didn't care how many of us there were as long as we were dead. I watched them butcher my friends. Every single one of them. And I did nothing.
I'm sorry you had to go through that. It sounds nothing short of horrific.
I try not to think back on it too much. I want to remember my friends as they were, before that awful day.
I give her a small, encouraging smile. That's a good way to remember them. I try to keep thoughts of my family at bay, of their final moments and what I would have seen if I had been there. The memory of Nerissa hits especially hard. Was she frightened? Did she suffer? I can safely say that no matter what happened, my sister would have gone down fighting. She was never one to give up so easily. Riona takes in a deep, shuddering breath, her bright eyes shining with unshed tears.
I can't remember how long I hid there, terrified to leave in case they came back.
She stops suddenly, a silent memory playing in her mind, one only she has access to. With a sigh, she continues her story, her eyes half closed as though she might still be back there, in that damned alleyway.
When I finally stumbled out of there, something inside of me was changed. I had this anger. I was sad, yes, but that rage consumed me. Rage and helplessness. I was one person against an entire clan. Eventually, I found refuge in a crowded bar, hoping to disappear amongst the crowd until I could figure out what to do next. That bar was the Ark.
What happened next?
I saw a familiar face. One who insisted he owed me a debt. Sebastian.
Her face lights up at the memory, and I can only imagine how it must have felt to find a friendly face after such a tragedy.
He introduced me to Calderin. I told the captain my story, and since then I've been a part of the crew.
So you joined the crew because you had no other choice?
I joined them because they were hunting monsters. Calderin, after what he had been through, was hell-bent on stopping Zovac and the K-Mary by any means possible. Suddenly, I wasn't helpless anymore.
She fixes me with those unusual yellow eyes, her stare suddenly determined.
We failed on Goldus. It won't happen again.
Something in Riona's demeanor scares me a little, though I can't say I blame her for wanting revenge against the group who murdered hers.
So now you know why I joined the Andromeda Six. I'm here to see that Zovac and the K-Mary fall. I don't know how yet, but we'll find a way. That's all that matters.
I see your determination, and I know how it feels to want justice, and even revenge. the most important person in my life was murdered, and I wasn't even there to say goodbye.
Then you know how it feels, how it carves out a piece of your humanity and your faith.
Our eyes meet, and something in me feels connected by the tragedies we've both had to endure. I'm starting to feel it, more than I ever wanted to.
What will you do now that you know?
I wipe away the tears that have spilled from my eyes with the back of a hand, resisting the urge to drown in my own despair. Cauldron mentioned a meeting tomorrow to discuss what happens next. I suppose I'll hear what everyone has to say and decide from there. Riona opens her mouth to say something, but stops before the words come out. What is it? With an apologetic smile, she finally speaks.
There are too many people who abuse the power they have, but sometimes doing nothing at all is just as bad. You are the only surviving Pegasi. You have the biggest claim to the throne, if you want it.
She doesn't meet my eyes, but I understand what she's trying to say. I hadn't had the chance to think on it much, and I'm not sure how much I want to.
There are people who would support you. I'd support you.
When I slip a stray strand of silver hair back behind her ear, her eyes soften on me. My hand lingers on the side of her face, far longer than intended, and she covers it with her own, her long fingers seeping her gentle warmth into me.
I'm glad you found us, Nico. The crew, I mean.
I am too, it's just... My smile falters, my hand slipping back down to my side. What you said. It's not something I've thought about yet. To be honest, it's not something I thought about ever. I'm the youngest of 11 children. This day should never have happened.
Whatever you decide, Zovak can't be left to rule. There has to be someone else.
There are others who might have a claim, as weak as it may be, but none of that mattered with Zovak at the head of power. For all I know, he might have murdered them too. Riona lets out a heavy breath, and for the first time I notice how tired she looks. All of a sudden I feel incredibly guilty for having kept her up so late.
It's late, and we both need to get some rest. I'll see you again when you come back for your scans. I'm sure that tomorrow, there will be a lot we all need to discuss.
I stand and straighten myself up, wishing Riona a good night before leaving the infirmary, looking forward to finding a moment of peace alone in my room.